Commander James Walker stared at the glowing message on his screen. He read it 3 times to make sure he wasn't seeing things. An invitation to the Deathworld summit? He muttered, running a hand through his short brown hair. Why would they invite us? The message was official, bearing the seal of the Galactic Council. Humans had only joined the wider galactic community 5 years ago. Most alien species still viewed them as curiosities, soft-skinned creatures from a planet that wasn't considered particularly dangerous. James tapped his desk communicator. "Dr. Reed, please come to my office." 10 minutes later, Dr. Anya Reed walked in. She was the best xenobiologist Earth had, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You called, Commander?" James turned his screen toward her. "Read this." Her eyes widened as she scanned the message. "The Deathworld Summit? That's unexpected." "Explain it to me," James said. "What exactly is this summit?" Anya settled into chair. "It's a meeting of species from the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Places with extreme gravity, deadly atmospheres, killing temperatures. The aliens who evolved there are the toughest, strongest, and often the most aggressive species we know. And they've invited humans?" James looked confused. "Earth isn't classified as a death world." "No," Anya agreed. "The Galactic Council rates Earth as mid-tier hostile at best. Nothing special by their standards." James drummed his fingers on his desk. "So why invite us?" "Maybe they need something from us," Anya suggested. "Or it could be a political move. Either way, this is a huge opportunity." James nodded slowly. "Assemble a team. We leave in 3 days." 2 weeks later, James stood in the observation deck of their ship, gazing at the massive space station called Nexus 9. Built into a hollowed-out asteroid, it hung against the backdrop of a ringed gas giant. The station could simulate different environments for all attending species. Behind him stood his carefully selected team: Dr. Anya Reed, xenobiologist; Marcus Stone, security specialist with 20 years of military experience; and Vex, a human. Born and raised on Mars, with the unique body adaptations that came with it. "Impressive," Marcus said, his deep voice breaking the silence. His dark skin contrasted with the gray of his uniform. "But I still don't understand why we're here." "We're about to find out," James replied as the docking procedure began. The welcoming hall was enormous, filled with beings from across the galaxy. James immediately noticed they were the smallest delegation present. Most other species stood 7 feet tall or more, with bodies clearly built for survival in harsh conditions. A reptilian alien approached them, walking with the heavy steps of someone used to much stronger gravity. Its scales gleamed like polished metal, and its eyes were narrow slits of burning orange. "Humans," it said, translator device making its growls understandable. "I am Drac of the Crawl. I question your presence here." James stepped forward, standing straight. "Commander James Walker, representing Earth. We were invited, same as you." Drac made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your world is soft. Your bodies are fragile. What could you possibly contribute to a gathering of true Deathworlders?" Before James could answer, another alien joined them. This one moved like flowing water, its blue-gray body covered in what looked like tiny scales. 4 arms emerged from its torso, each ending in 3-fingered hands. "Peace, Drac," the newcomer said. "Let us not judge before the summit begins. I am Taylor of the Vec. Welcome, humans." The tension eased slightly, but James noticed many other delegates watching them with what seemed like amusement or curiosity. A loud tone echoed through the hall, and the crowd moved toward a set of massive doors. Inside was a circular chamber, with tiered seating and a central platform. As they found their places, a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. A tall, spindly alien with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. "Delegates," it began, "I welcome you to the 18th Deathworld Summit. For those new to our gathering," its eyes flickered toward the human delegation, "this summit brings together representatives from the most challenging worlds in the galaxy to discuss matters of mutual interest and concern." The hologram gestured widely. "This cycle, we face a growing problem. The alliance of soft world species from the Orion sector is expanding into territories traditionally belonging to Deathworld species. They bring their weak environmental standards and attempt to terraform planets to their liking. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Our goal is to form a coalition that will protect our interests and show these soft-worlders that Deathworld species cannot be pushed aside. James leaned toward Anya. Are they talking about human colonies? She shook her head. No, the Orion sector is dominated by the Trill and Bellin species. They prefer planets with stable environments and mild conditions. The meeting continued with various delegates standing to share grievances against the soft-worlders. James noticed that no one asked for human input, as if their presence was merely a courtesy. When the session ended for the day, the delegates broke into groups, mingling and forming alliances. Most ignored the humans completely. Not the warmest welcome, Marcus said quietly. They don't think we belong here, Vex replied. Growing up on Mars had given him a leaner build than Earth-born humans, with slightly longer limbs and larger eyes. They see us as weaklings. A small alien suddenly appeared before them. It stood barely 4 feet tall, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Its large eyes blinked rapidly. Humans, it said in a musical voice. I am Neri, of the Talari. May we speak privately? James nodded, and the group followed Neri to a quiet corner. Your presence here is unusual, Neri said. The Talari study planetary classifications. According to official records, Earth barely qualifies as a mid-tier hostile world. That's correct, Anya confirmed. Neri's eyes blinked in a pattern that suggested excitement. But we believe this classification is wrong. The humans exchanged glances. What do you mean? James asked. No other known species has adapted to such a wide variety of conditions on a single planet, Neri explained. From frozen poles to burning deserts, from ocean depths to mountain peaks. Most species here evolved to survive one type of extreme condition. Humans adapted to them all. James felt a chill run down his spine as he understood. You're saying Earth is actually a death world of a unique kind, Neri finished. One that creates adaptable survivors rather than specialized ones. As they spoke, James noticed Drac watching them from across the room, his orange eyes narrowed with suspicion. The other delegates don't know this, James guessed. No, Neri agreed, and they will not take kindly to being corrected. But soon, they will learn what humans are truly capable of, and I suspect they will regret inviting you to this summit. The humans looked at each other, suddenly aware that they were strangers in a dangerous gathering, surrounded by the galaxy's deadliest species, none of whom understood what humans really were, and that might be the biggest advantage they had. The second day of the summit began with what the aliens called capability demonstrations. Each species would showcase their evolutionary advantages in a series of challenges designed to test endurance, strength, and survival skills. James and his team sat in the observation area, watching as the massive Crawl delegate Drac stepped into the demonstration chamber. The room's gravity increased to double Earth normal, but Drac moved as if nothing had changed. He lifted a metal block that must have weighed at least 500 pounds and carried it across the room with ease. Impressive, Marcus muttered. Next came a representative of the VEC, who entered a section filled with swirling acidic mist. The alien moved through it casually, the acid actually seeming to strengthen its scaled skin rather than burn it. The VEC evolved on a world with acidic rain, Anya explained quietly. Their outer scales absorb it and use it to reinforce their bodies. One by one, the delegates demonstrated their species' extraordinary adaptations. The Morta could regenerate, lost limbs in minutes. The Jur could survive in the vacuum of space for nearly an hour. The Talari, the small aliens who had spoken to them yesterday, revealed they were actually a hive mind of microscopic organisms that could reshape themselves at will. Then it was humanity's turn. This should be amusing, Drac said loudly as James stepped forward. The challenge chamber reset to normal Earth gravity and temperature. A series of obstacles appeared. Walls to climb, gaps to jump, weights to lift. Nothing that seemed particularly challenging compared to what the other species had faced. "Is this an insult?" one alien delegate called out. "Are the humans to be tested as children?" The room controller, a tall, spindly alien, looked embarrassed. "We adjusted the parameters to match human physiology. Full Deathworld conditions would kill them instantly." Laughter rippled through the gathering. James felt his face grow warm, but he kept his expression neutral. "We accept the challenge as presented," he said. Then he turned to his team and whispered, "Let's show them something they don't expect." Instead of simply completing the obstacle course as designed, James and his team worked together in perfect coordination. Where Drac had simply lifted his heavy block alone, Marcus and Vex improvised a lever system to move an even heavier weight. When faced with a climbing wall, they formed a human pyramid to reach the top more efficiently. As they finished, the timer showed they had completed the course faster than any previous species. Silence fell over the observation area. "They cheated," Drac growled. "They used tools." "No rules against it," James replied calmly. "Humans use what's available. It's how we survived on Earth." Before Drac could respond, Dr. Anya Reed stepped forward. "If I may," she said, addressing the gathered delegates, "I'd like to demonstrate another human capability." She moved to the central platform and activated her data tablet. A holographic display appeared, showing detailed biological information about each of the species present at the summit. "The Krall's armored hide," she began, highlighting Drac's species. "A remarkable adaptation to your volcanic homeworld. But did you know it contains trace elements of titanium absorbed from the soil? This gives you protection against heat, but makes you vulnerable to extreme cold." She moved to the next display. "The Vex acid resistance comes from specialized cells that actually convert caustic compounds into useful proteins. Quite ingenious." One by one, Anya detailed the strengths and weaknesses of each major species present. The delegates shifted uncomfortably as she revealed vulnerabilities they preferred to keep secret. "How do you know these things?" demanded a tall, insect-like alien. Anya smiled. "I studied. It's what humans do. We observe, learn, and adapt. We don't just rely on the bodies we were born with." The mood in the room had changed. What had been dismissive amusement was now cautious reassessment. As the demonstration session ended, delegates clustered in small groups, talking in low voices and casting glances at the humans. "I think we made an impression," Vex said with a slight smile. "Not all of it good," Marcus warned, nodding toward Drac, who was staring at them with undisguised hostility. James noticed Neri, the small Talari representative, approaching with another alien he hadn't met, a bulky creature with thick gray skin that looked like stone. "Commander Walker," Neri greeted them. "This is Gron of the Petra. He wishes to speak with you." Gron's voice rumbled like grinding rocks. "Your demonstration was unexpected. My people value efficiency. We would speak more of human methods." "We'd be happy to," James replied, recognizing the diplomatic opening. Before they could continue, Drac pushed his way through the crowd toward them. The Krall's orange eyes blazed with anger. "Enough talk," he growled. "Words and clever tricks. Prove nothing? Real Deathworlders prove themselves through combat." He pointed a clawed finger at Marcus. "You, the warrior. I challenge you to face me in the arena." The room fell silent. Challenges between delegates were allowed but rare, and usually dangerous. Marcus stepped forward, his face calm despite facing an opponent who outweighed him by at least 200 pounds and had natural armor. "I accept," he said simply. The arena was a circular pit with walls that could change to simulate different environments. For this match, it was set to standard gravity with a hard, stone-like floor. Delegates packed the viewing area above. James noticed some were placing bets with odds heavily favoring Drac. "This is madness," Anya whispered as Marcus prepared to enter the arena. "That Krall could tear him apart." "Marcus knows what he's doing," James assured her, though his own stomach was tight with worry. In the center of the arena, Drac towered over Marcus. The crawl's scales gleamed under the lights, his muscled arms ending in sharp claws. "Begin," called the match official. Drac charged immediately, hoping to overwhelm Marcus with pure strength. But the human sidestepped with surprising speed, using Drac's momentum against him. As the crawl passed, Marcus delivered a precise strike to the back of Drac's knee, one of the weak points Anya had identified. Drac stumbled but quickly recovered, turning with a roar. This time he was more cautious, circling Marcus slowly. "Stand. Still soft skin," he growled. "Make me," Marcus replied. What followed was a display of human agility against alien strength. Whenever Drac attacked, Marcus used wrestling techniques and leverage to avoid taking direct hits. He couldn't match the crawl's power, but he didn't need to. He simply needed to outlast him. As the match continued, Drac's movements became slower, his breathing heavier. Crawl were built for short bursts of strength, not endurance. In a final, desperate move, Drac lunged at Marcus. This time, instead of dodging, Marcus stepped into the attack, ducking under the crawl's arms and using a judo throw to send Drac crashing to the ground. Before the crawl could rise, Marcus had him in a joint, lock that immobilized him without causing injury. "Yield," Marcus said quietly. For a long moment, Drac struggled. Then finally, he tapped the ground in submission. The arena fell silent, then erupted in a buzz of astonished voices. As Marcus helped Drac to his feet, the crawl looked at him with new eyes. "How did you defeat me? Your muscles are nothing compared." "To mine," Marcus shrugged. "On Earth, we learned long ago that brain beats brawn every time." As they left the arena, James noticed the other delegates were no longer looking at the humans with amusement or contempt. Now there was curiosity, and in some eyes, concern. The humans had been invited to the Deathworld summit as an afterthought. Now, they had everyone's attention. The third day of the summit began normally. After yesterday's demonstrations, more alien delegates approached the humans with questions. Even Drac nodded respectfully to Marcus when they passed in the hallway. James sat with representatives from 6 different species, discussing trade possibilities, when the first tremor shook the station. At first, it was just a small vibration. Then came a much stronger shake that knocked several delegates off their feet. Warning lights flashed red, and alarms began to wail throughout the station. "What's happening?" James asked, helping a fallen Talari to stand. A voice boomed over the station's communication system. "Emergency alert. Meteor impact in Sector 7. All delegates proceed to emergency shelters immediately." Chaos erupted as delegates rushed toward the exits. James quickly found Anya, Marcus, and Vex in the crowd. "Status report?" he asked. Vex checked his handheld scanner. "Not good. The station's outer hull has been breached in multiple places. Life. Support systems are failing in at least 3 sectors." Another violent shake rocked the station, throwing everyone off balance. "This is no ordinary meteor strike," Marcus said quietly. "The station has defensive systems that should have detected and destroyed any normal space debris." James nodded grimly. "I was thinking the same thing." He turned to address the panicking aliens around them. "Everyone stay calm. We need to organize and—" A massive explosion cut him off, and the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in moments later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. One of the station administrators, a tall 4-armed alien, rushed toward them. "The main life support hub has been damaged. We're losing atmosphere in multiple sectors." "Where are the emergency repair teams?" James asked. "Scattered across the station. Many are cut off by sealed emergency bulkheads." James looked at his team. "We need to help." "Anya, what environments are most dangerous for which species?" Anya didn't hesitate. "The crawl can't survive low temperatures. The Vec needs specific atmospheric pressure. The Talari will die if exposed to certain radiation types that are probably leaking from damaged systems." James made a quick decision. "Vex, you and I will head to the life support hub. Marcus, organize evacuation for species that can't survive current conditions. Anya, get to the medical bay and prepare for casualties." "And who put you in charge, human?" a deep voice growled. James turned to see Drac standing nearby, along with representatives from several other species. "No one," James replied calmly. "But we need to act fast, and humans are good in crisis situations. It's your choice. Work with us or handle this alone." Another violent shake decided the matter. A ceiling panel crashed down, nearly hitting a VEC delegate. "Fine," Drac said. "What do you need from us?" "The crawl can withstand higher pressures than humans," James said. "We need you to help secure the outer hull breaches." Drac nodded and started gathering his people. "Talari," James turned to Neri, "your small size allows you to access maintenance tunnels. Can your people check the emergency systems?" "Yes," Neri agreed. One by one, James assigned tasks based on each species' natural abilities. Within minutes, what had been a panicking crowd became an organized emergency response team. Vex and James fought their way through smoke-filled corridors toward the life support hub. The damage was worse than they had imagined. Entire sections of the station were exposed to space, sealed off only by emergency force fields that flickered dangerously. "Temperatures rising," Vex warned as they approached the hub. "Must be a coolant leak." The door to the life support center was jammed, the metal warped from heat. James and Vex put their shoulders against it and pushed, finally forcing it open. Enough to squeeze through. Inside, the scene was chaotic. Equipment sparked and smoked. The few technicians present were overwhelmed, trying to keep vital systems online. "What's the situation?" James asked the nearest technician, a bulky alien with 6 eyes. "Critical failure in multiple systems," the technician replied. "Primary atmosphere processors are offline. Backup systems at 20% capacity and failing. We have maybe 2 hours before life support fails completely in residential sectors." James studied the control panels. He had some engineering training, but the alien technology was far different from Earth's. "Vex?" he asked. Vex was already examining a system diagram. "The main problem is here," he pointed. "Cooling systems are offline, causing processors to overheat and shut down. We need to restore coolant flow or find an alternative cooling method." "Can we reroute from another system?" "Possibly, but it would mean—" An explosion rocked the room, throwing both men to the floor. When James looked up, he saw that a plasma conduit had ruptured, filling half the room with searing heat. The remaining technicians fled, leaving only James and Vex. "We need to seal that breach before the whole system goes," Vex shouted over the roar of escaping energy. "It's too hot. Nothing can survive in there," James yelled back. Vex shook his head. "I grew up on Mars. Lower gravity means I have less bone density but better heat tolerance. I can make it." Before James could stop him, Vex was moving toward the breach, using a fallen panel as a shield. The temperature near the rupture was high enough to melt standard metals, but Vex pushed forward. With quick movements, he managed to seal the emergency valve, stopping the plasma flow. When he staggered back, parts of his uniform were smoking, and his exposed skin was red with burns. "Got it," he gasped, collapsing into James's arms. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," James said, helping him to a cooler area. Vex managed a weak smile. "Humans, right? Mom always said I got the worst traits." Across the station, the other humans were equally busy. Marcus had organized an evacuation of the most vulnerable species to safer sectors, using his military experience to create efficient movement through damaged corridors. In the medical bay, Anya faced a different challenge. Injured aliens from a dozen different species filled the room, each requiring specific treatment. She worked frantically, applying her knowledge of xenobiology to save lives. "This one needs a methane-rich atmosphere," she instructed a medical assistant. "And keep the Jur away from the Talari. Their radiation signatures are harmful to each other." A tall insect-like alien approached her. "You know much about our biologies, human." "I study," Anya replied simply, not looking up from treating a burn on a young Vec. "Why?" the alien asked. "Such knowledge could be used against us." This made Anya pause. "Or it could be used to help you, as I'm doing now." She finished bandaging the Vec. Humans are curious by nature. We learn because we can. 6 hours after the crisis began, James met with the other team leaders in a makeshift command center. Life support is stabilized, he reported. Vex got the cooling systems back online. Casualties are minimal, Anya added. No fatalities reported, yet. Drax stepped forward. The hull breaches have been sealed, but the station has been knocked out of stable orbit. We are now on a decay path toward the gas giant. Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. How long do we have? James asked. 3 days, perhaps 4, Drax replied. And there are not enough evacuation ships for everyone. All eyes turned to James, waiting for his response. In just a few hours, the humans had gone from being dismissed as weak creatures to being looked to for leadership. Then we'd better find a way to fix the orbit, James said firmly, because no one gets left behind. As he looked around the room, at the alien faces, some hopeful, some skeptical, James realized something important had changed. The Deathworld species had faced a real crisis, and it wasn't their incredible strength or natural armor that had saved them. It was human adaptability, ingenuity, and refusal to give up, and they were just getting started. The station will crash into the gas giant in less than 72 hours, Drax announced to the gathered delegates. They had assembled in the largest intact conference room. The mood was grim. Emergency repairs had stabilized life support, but the station's engines were too damaged to correct their falling orbit. How many evacuation ships do we have? A delegate asked. 12, replied the station administrator. Enough to save roughly 60% of those on board. Angry voices filled the room as delegates argued about who should be given priority. James exchanged looks with his team. Anya was examining station schematics on her tablet. Vex, his burns bandaged, studied orbital calculations. Marcus stood, silently, assessing the growing tensions among the aliens. "Quiet!" James shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. "Fighting over evacuation spots solves nothing," he said firmly. "We need to focus on saving everyone." "And how do you propose to do that, human?" asked a tall, spindly alien with 4 arms. "The main engines are beyond repair." James looked at Vex, who nodded slightly. "We have an idea," James said, "but we'll need help from all of you." He stepped to the central display and brought up a diagram of the station. The station has emergency maneuvering thrusters located at these points. He highlighted several areas on the diagram. "They're not powerful enough to correct our orbit on their own, but if we use them strategically and in the right sequence, it still won't be enough," interrupted the station's chief engineer. "The thrusters were only designed for minor course corrections. That's why we need to boost their power," James continued. "Dr. Reed has studied the gas giant we're falling toward." Anya stepped forward. "The planet's atmosphere contains high concentrations of hydrogen and helium, but also significant methane and ammonia. If we could harvest some of these gases..." "Impossible," the engineer said. "We have no harvesting equipment." "We build it," Marcus spoke up for the first time, "using materials from non-essential sections of the station." This caused an uproar. Delegates shouted that it couldn't be done, that there wasn't enough time, that the humans were offering false hope. Drax slammed his massive fist on the table, silencing everyone. "Let them speak," he growled. "These humans have proven resourceful." James nodded gratefully to the crawl. "Here's our plan. We convert the station's waste disposal system into a collection mechanism. As we enter the upper atmosphere, we collect gases to supercharge the thrusters. We'll need precise timing and coordination, but calculations show it could generate enough thrust to push us back into stable orbit." "And if it fails?" someone asked. "Then we still have the evacuation ships," James replied. "We lose nothing by trying." The room was quiet as the delegates considered the plan. Finally, the station administrator spoke. "What do you need from us?" The next 24 hours were a blur of activity. The station was divided into work teams, each focusing on a different aspect of the plan. The crawl, with their incredible strength, removed panels and equipment from non-essential areas. The VEC, resistant to toxic environments, helped modify the waste disposal systems to collect atmospheric gases. The Talari, with their ability to reform their bodies, squeezed into tight spaces to rewire critical systems. In the main hangar, Marcus supervised the construction of makeshift collection tanks from cargo containers and spare parts. "No, connect the pressure valve here," he instructed a group of aliens. "It needs to withstand extreme variations." Nearby, Vex worked with station engineers to reprogram the thrusters for the precise firing sequence they would need. "Earth calculations?" asked one engineer, looking skeptical at Vex's figures. "Mars calculations, actually," Vex replied with a tired smile. "When you grow up in a dome that could crack at any moment, you learn to be precise." At the medical bay, Anya prepared for possible injuries during the dangerous maneuver. She had organized supplies according to species needs and trained a team of assistants from various worlds. "The crawl will need thermal protection," she explained. "Their body temperature drops dangerously in low-pressure environments." "How do you know so much about us?" asked a crawl medic. Anya paused from sorting medical supplies. "On Earth, we have thousands of different environments, from burning deserts to frozen wastelands. To survive as a species, we had to understand our surroundings and adapt. I simply applied that same curiosity to your species." As the deadline approached, James stood in the command center with Drac and other leaders, reviewing final preparations. "Collection systems ready," reported Marcus over the comm. "Thrusters reprogrammed and standing by," added Vex. "Medical teams on alert," Anya confirmed. James took a deep breath. "Begin descent into the upper atmosphere." The station shuddered as it hit the first wisps of the gas giant's atmosphere. Warning lights flashed as external temperatures rose rapidly. "Hull integrity at 90%, called out a technician. "Activate collection systems," James ordered. Throughout the station, the modified waste disposal vents opened, sucking in the rich gases of the planet's outer layers. Pressure gauges climbed as storage tanks filled. "We're getting too much methane in Tank 3, Marcus warned. "Pressure's climbing too fast," Drac immediately responded. "Crawl team moving to reinforce Tank 3. The station began to shake violently as it descended deeper into the atmosphere. Heat warnings sounded throughout the lower levels. "Hull temperature approaching critical levels," a technician announced, fear evident in their voice. "Just a little longer," James urged, watching the tank levels rise. "We need more fuel." Warning klaxons blared as the station dropped even lower. Several delegates looked ready to abandon the plan and head for evacuation ships. "Tank levels at 85%, Marcus reported. 90, 95. "Full capacity reached," Vex called out. "All tanks reading maximum." "Close collection vents," James ordered. "Prepare for thruster sequence." The station continued to fall, now deep enough in the atmosphere that the outer hull glowed from the heat. Creaks and groans echoed through the structure, as metal strained against forces it was never designed to withstand. "All hands brace for acceleration," James called out. "Initiating thruster sequence in 3, 2, 1, fire." The reprogrammed thrusters ignited, using the collected gases to generate thrust many times their normal capacity. The station lurched violently, throwing everyone against safety restraints. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. The station continued to fall, shaking more violently than ever. "It's not working," someone shouted. "Give it time," James insisted, knuckles white as he gripped the command console. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, the descent began to slow. The violent shaking eased slightly. "We're leveling out," Vex reported, excitement in his voice. "Orbital. Decay has stopped." "Second thruster sequence," James ordered. "Push us back up." Another series of controlled explosions rocked the station as the remaining fuel ignited. This time there was no doubt. The station was rising, climbing back out of the atmosphere and into space. Throughout the station, cheers erupted as screens showed their trajectory stabilizing into a safe orbit. In the command center, alien delegates looked at the humans with new understanding. Many had dismissed humans as weak, soft-skinned creatures from an unremarkable world. Now they saw something else entirely. In all my cycles, Drax said quietly to James, I have never seen such adaptation. On my world, we survive through strength and endurance. But your people, you change the rules of survival itself. James smiled tiredly. That's what Earth taught us. When you can't overpower a problem, you outthink it. As the station settled into its new orbit, the true nature of humans was becoming clear to the gathered species. These weren't soft-worlders who had somehow survived despite their weakness. These were apex predators of a different kind, creatures who had mastered the art of turning disadvantages into strengths, of finding solutions where none seemed possible, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 days after saving the station, the Deathworld summit reconvened in the main hall. Engineers were still making repairs throughout the structure, but life support and essential systems were fully functional. Again, the atmosphere was different now. Where once there had been mistrust and competition between species, a sense of shared experience had formed. Representatives who had worked side by side during the crisis now sat together, comparing notes and sharing stories. At the center of it all were the humans. James and his team had become unofficial heroes among the delegates. Even species who had initially mocked them now sought their advice. The summit leader, a tall juror with gray-green skin, called the meeting to order. Before we continue with our original agenda, I believe we have unfinished business to address. Our investigation has confirmed that the meteor strike was not an accident. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The evidence suggests sabotage. The leader continued, specifically by agents from the very soft world alliance we gathered to discuss. Angry shouts filled the room. James frowned and glanced at Anya, who looked equally concerned. May I speak? James asked, standing. The leader nodded. The humans have earned that right. James walked to the central platform. Our team has reviewed the same evidence, and we've come to a different conclusion. The damage patterns don't match what we would expect from sabotage. More importantly, we've been in contact with representatives from the Orion sector. This caused an uproar. You spoke with the enemy? Demanded a delegate. We spoke with people who didn't even know they were considered enemies, James replied calmly. The so-called soft world expansion isn't a military action or territory grab. It's a trade initiative. They've been establishing outposts to facilitate commerce, not to threaten Deathworld species. Then who attacked us? Drac demanded. No one, Anya said, joining James on the platform. She activated a holographic display showing the station's orbit and the surrounding space. The station passed through an uncharted debris field. The meteor strike was natural, if unfortunately timed. The leader looked skeptical. Then why were we led to believe otherwise? Marcus stepped forward. Because someone wanted this summit to form an aggressive alliance against the soft worlds. We found evidence that reports were altered to make natural expansion look like hostile action. James nodded. We believe certain factions within your governments want to control the valuable resources in the Orion sector. War would give them that opportunity. Silence fell over the room as delegates processed this information. Some looked angry, others thoughtful. These are serious accusations, the leader said finally, which is why we brought proof, James replied, nodding to Vex, who distributed data tablets to key delegates. As they reviewed the evidence, James continued speaking. The real question isn't whether soft-worlders are a threat. It's why Deathworld species and soft-world species can't work together, combining our different strengths. Drax stood up. Work with soft skins? What could they possibly offer that we need? James smiled. The same things we offered you: adaptability, innovation, different perspectives. He gestured around the room. Look what we accomplished when we worked together to save this station. Imagine what we could accomplish on a galactic scale. The human makes a valid point, said Neri, the small Talari representative. Our species evolved to survive harsh conditions through physical adaptation. Humans and other similar species evolved to change their environment instead. Both approaches have value. Slowly, the mood in the room began to shift as delegates considered this new perspective. Perhaps, the leader said cautiously, we should reconsider our approach to the Orion sector. James nodded. And perhaps it's time to reconsider how you classify worlds and species. He activated his own display, showing a map of Earth. I'd like to tell you the truth about our planet. For the next half hour, James showed the delegates images and data about Earth that left many of them stunned. Footage of hurricanes and tornadoes, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, Arctic blizzards and scorching deserts, oceans that could swallow some of their worlds whole. Earth doesn't have just one harsh environment, James explained. It has hundreds, all on a single planet, where most of your species evolved to master one type of extreme condition. Humans had to adapt to constantly changing conditions. HFY showed them historical records next. Humans surviving in environments from frozen tundra to burning sands, from mountain peaks to ocean depths. We don't have natural armor or acid blood or the ability to withstand extreme gravity, James continued. Instead, we developed something else, adaptability and endurance unlike anything else in the galaxy. He displayed images of human distance runners, persistence hunters who could chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, mountain climbers scaling impossible peaks, deep sea divers exploring crushing depths. Humans aren't apex predators because we're the strongest or fastest, Marcus added. We're apex predators because we never ever stop. We keep coming, keep trying, keep adapting until we succeed or die trying. The delegates were silent now, many looking troubled. When we first arrived at this summit, Anya said, you classified Earth as a mid-tier hostile world. That was a mistake, Neri stood. The Talari have already corrected our records. Earth is now classified as an apex adaptive death world, the only one of its kind we've encountered. Which brings me to my proposal. James said, instead of an alliance against soft-worlders, I propose a galactic federation that includes all types of worlds and species. One that values the unique contributions each evolutionary path offers. The leader looked around the room, seeing the changing attitudes. This would be unprecedented. So was saving a space station by diving into a gas giant, James replied with a smile. Sometimes unprecedented is exactly what's needed. Drac rose to his full height. The Crawl have long prided ourselves on being the strongest Deathworlders in the galaxy. I find it uncomfortable to admit that strength alone is not enough. He fixed his orange eyes on James. But I am not too proud to learn this lesson. The Crawl support the humans' proposal. One by one, other delegates stood to voice their support. As the vote was tallied, Vex leaned toward James. Not bad for a species that wasn't even supposed to be here. James smiled. They invited humans to the Deathworld summit thinking we were weak curiosities. Big mistake, Marcus added with a grin. When the final vote was announced, the result was overwhelmingly in favor of James's proposal. The Deathworld summit would be disbanded, replaced by the first ever Galactic Federation of all worlds. As the meeting concluded, delegates crowded around the humans, asking questions about Earth and human methods. Several requested human advisors for their most challenging problems. I don't understand, said a young Vec delegate to Anya. If humans are so capable, why didn't your people conquer the galaxy when you first achieved space travel? Anya smiled. Because that's not who we are at our best. Humans can be warriors when needed, but we prefer to be builders, explorers, problem solvers. We'd rather make friends than enemies. A wise approach, the Vec admitted. As the delegates dispersed, the four humans gathered near a viewing window that looked out over the gas giant they had nearly crashed into. Its swirling clouds now seemed beautiful, rather than threatening. So, Vex said, not bad for our first interstellar diplomatic mission. We came here to observe. James replied. Instead, we helped prevent a war, saved a space station, and founded a galactic federation. Just another day for humanity, Marcus said with a straight face. They all laughed, watching the stars beyond the viewport. Humanity had taken its first real steps into the galactic community, and the galaxy would never be the same. The mistake hadn't been inviting humans to the summit. The mistake had been underestimating them.